My family law practice, I encountered highly emotional clients, and I understood that. It's a very stressful situation. They're under tremendous pressure and anxiety. So some of that went with the territory. But there were some clients who were simply excessively emotional. And when you have an unreasonably emotional client, it can create additional stress for you and for your staff. Why do these clients become so complicated? And one thing I'd suggest we always try to remember with some empathy is that they're going through a very stressful situation. I'm a really experienced trial attorney. I've been doing it for 45 years, but I once had to endure my own contentious case with another law firm. And it distracted me terribly. I couldn't sleep at night. I was stressed. I was worried. And I'm an experienced litigator.
Welcome to the Free Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Miles. The Free Lawyer Podcast is designed for the lawyer, entrepreneur, or professional who is in some way unfulfilled, stressed, or stuck, and is looking for something better. We will discuss various blocks that limit us from achieving the personal freedom that we all desire, but have not yet fully experienced. And we will give actionable steps to free yourself from them. Are you looking to achieve a new level of success? If so, this podcast is for you.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of The Free Lawyer. I'm so glad you can all join me today. Happy Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend. If you're listening to me for the first time, welcome. I'm Gary Miles, your host. I've been practicing law for 45 years, and I've recently decided that my passion is helping and supporting you, helping you to become as successful and free in your practice as you can, to help you find joy and fulfillment where maybe you aren't feeling that way right now. So thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please click the follow button so my episodes will drop for you every Monday, my solo episodes, and every Thursday when I have a guest. And for those of you who are returning listeners, thank you for your loyalty and for coming back. And I would love it if you would leave a rating and review. It helps the podcast be seen by more people. So if you listen regularly, please share it with someone else, and please leave a rating and review. I would greatly appreciate that. I'm here to serve you at any time in any way. If you ever have any questions or you're struggling with something, please feel free to reach out to me at my email at gary@garymiles.net, and I'll see how I can help you. We could set up a courtesy call and discuss your situation and see how I might be able to be of service to you. So with that being said, last week we started talking about how to enhance our client relationships, how to develop good relationships with clients. And that's our goal, isn't it, to have very good relationships with our clients. But today we're going to talk about the flip side of that, because sometimes it's not so easy. Today I'm going to talk about some strategies for handling difficult clients, how to manage their expectations and resolve conflicts with our more difficult clients. And I like this quote from Damon Richards. It doesn't exactly speak to the legal profession, but actually it does. Your customer doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's true of our clients. So let me ask you some questions. How often do you encounter demanding clients? Those who constantly demand updates or are just never satisfied with the progress of the case. Or those clients who take an excessive amount of your time. They talk constantly, they call you every day. No matter how much you tell them, they're never happy. Do those clients cause you any stress or really any financial issues? Have you ever had to terminate a relationship with a client because of their unreasonable demands or behavior? As lawyers, we all share the experience of encountering diverse clients with different challenges and different expectations. And many of our clients are a pleasure to work with, aren't they? But others can truly test our patience and our skills to the limit. I know that's happened to me. And it's important to remember that demanding clients are really an inherent part of our profession. It's not a bad break. It's something we should expect and anticipate. And trust me, you are not alone in facing difficult clients. But how we handle them can really impact our success and our gratitude and our fulfillment. Your professional success and personal well-being depends so much on how you handle that difficult client. So today I'm going to talk about, in this episode, some practical strategies for managing expectations of our clients. I'll begin with understanding our difficult clients, then managing their expectations, and exploring practical techniques that you can use to build stronger relationships, enhance your practice, and grow personally as you navigate even the most challenging client interactions with confidence and grace. So it may not seem this way, but I want to suggest to you that you remember that every challenging client is truly an opportunity for personal growth and professional development. So let's talk about the difficult clients. Understanding the identifying characteristics of demanding clients is a really helpful first step. What makes some of our clients so challenging? And that understanding will help you pave the way for effective strategies. So some clients have unrealistic expectations. I've seen that in personal injury case. The case might be worth $50,000. The client wants nothing less than $1 million. My client in a divorce case wants sole custody, and the other party is a good parent, and that's highly unlikely. They expect results that will greatly exceed the case's likely outcome, and they will never, ever, ever be happy no matter what we tell them. They won't agree to a fair and reasonable solution because compromise is simply not in their blood. They expect a result that is at least a complete victory, if not more. Very, very difficult client who you'll never make happy. 2, the other is the client who makes excessive communication demands. They want emails or phone calls every day. They will constantly hound you for more information and more questions. They'll get you on the phone and they simply won't let you get off. They control the conversation, they interrupt you, and only want more and more communication, conversation, emails, letters, the whole works. Have you ever had that client who spends too much time on the phone with you, a call you can never end, or who emails you constantly? The third category is a client who doesn't trust or respect you. Have you ever had clients who won't accept your advice or disrespect your position as their attorney? Some clients are always unhappy with their expectations for the case, your strategies, or your approach to handling it. They're always second guessing you and complaining about your advice. And the one thing they sometimes do is they'll ask their neighbor or their sister or someone else or some lawyer in a different field in a different state for advice. And then they throw that up to you. Or, of course, they Google things and say, this is what happened when I Googled it. They don't trust you as being the expert in the case. And the fourth major category is a client who's emotionally volatile. My family law practice, I encountered highly emotional clients, and I understood that. It's a very stressful situation. They're under tremendous pressure and anxiety. So some of that went with the territory. But there were some clients who were simply excessively emotional. And when you have an unreasonably emotional client, it can create additional stress for you and for your staff. Why do these clients become so complicated? And one thing I'd suggest we always try to remember with some empathy is that they're going through a very stressful situation. I'm a really experienced trial attorney. I've been doing it for 45 years, but I once had to endure my own contentious case with another law firm. And it distracted me terribly. I couldn't sleep at night. I was stressed. I was worried. And I'm an experienced litigator. Our clients don't understand the legal process, and that also creates anxiety. So being empathetic to your client's stress is not just a professional necessity. It's a way to build a healthy client relationship based on understanding and compassion. But I would suggest to you that being selective in who you represent is a good practice. And if you've identified a prospective client as having a lot of those characteristics I mentioned above, you may not want to represent them. When people call me on a family law case, they say, do you rather represent the mother or the father? Or do you only represent the party who is trying to preserve the marriage? And my answer to them is, the only thing I care about is I don't want to represent a jerk. I'll represent the mother, I'll represent the father, I'll represent the party who left the marriage, or the party who committed adultery, or the party who stayed, but I won't represent a jerk. And I would suggest that when you speak to your prospective clients, see if they're jerks, see if they're people who you simply can't represent, or rather if they would be a joy to represent. So once you've gone through the process of evaluating this as a client you want to represent, the next step is to set clear expectations. One of the most crucial ways to manage a difficult client is to establish clear boundaries and set expectations from the very beginning of the relationship. And that proactive approach helps you feel more in control and prepared, and helps the client understand what to expect, the level of communication, and sets a standard for the relationship. If we don't set those boundaries, we may get calls at all hours of the night. And if we don't explain the timeline and set the right expectations, they will expect things that simply are not likely to happen. So the first concerns the process. Make sure your client understands the legal process, the potential outcomes, what might happen, what is the downside, what could they win or lose, what are the timeframes, and what are the costs, and discuss with them any risks or limitations associated with the case. Talk about the obstacles and the hurdles and the likelihood of a variety of different outcomes. Educate your clients about the legal process and let them know what their role is in it. Let them know that if they participate and are helpful, it could go faster or at less expense. And if you ensure your clients understand what to expect, they're more likely to be happy with the work you do. The next category is communications. Always set boundaries on communications. Let your clients know that you have other cases that also demand your time, that you may be tied up in court, and that you're only sometimes available, but will always return their call within, say, 24 hours. And that's my rule. Every call gets returned, hopefully the same day, but if not, the following day. And that helps you manage your time effectively and sets a precedent for your client to respect both your time and your expertise. And the next major category is fees. Clients often don't know what the matter will cost, how and when you bill, and things of that nature. Clients aren't used to generally paying legal fees. Now, I represent some insurance companies. That's a different deal. They, of course, were. But my family law clients had never hired a lawyer before, and they didn't know how and when to pay legal fees and didn't know what their exposure was. So be upfront about the costs in your billing practices. Be as descriptive as you can about their total exposure. Give detailed estimates and explain your process. So for us, all the bills for a given month, we send the bills out the first or second day of the following month, and it's expected to be paid within 30 days. And when you explain the process to the client and you establish those communication boundaries and you detail their financial exposure, your client will now have appropriate expectations. And that will eliminate many of the problems that might arise later in the case. The third major category is to communicate with your clients effectively. It's so critical to managing their expectations and preventing their complaints. Open communication is really the cornerstone of a strong relationship with your clients. Keep them informed and engaged throughout the process. Provide regular updates on case progress, upcoming steps, and any changes. And I think that any significant thing I send out on a case, like in a divorce case, if I send out an email, if I send out a letter, if I send out a pleading, if I receive a pleading, my client always gets it. And if they contact me, as I said before, I answer every communication within 24 hours. I think it's also important to give regular updates on the case's status. If the case has been dead for 2 weeks, just drop your client an email and let them know that it's still hanging out there, nothing really is happening, you're waiting for a pleading from the other side, whatever it might be. Each file should have a communication schedule, so every 2 weeks, or at the very latest 4 weeks, you send status updates. And whenever there's a significant development, let the client know right away, explain what happened and what it means. But one of the most important things is to listen to your client. In personal injury cases, our client are under a lot of pain and worry and fear. Family law, they're under such stress. And when they feel genuinely heard, so much of their anxiety washes away. Pay attention to your client. Understand their concerns and their emotions and respond thoughtfully. Try to put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel if you were going through that nasty divorce? How would you feel if you were in a car accident and you were under constant pain and unable to work like you used to? So try to understand their perspective. And that active listening will build trust, will make sure you understand your client's needs, and will allow for effective communication. Your client relationships will be very positive when you communicate effectively with them, when you respond promptly to their inquiries, when you truly hear their concerns, and you give clear, convincing answers. But sometimes, despite our best efforts, we have disputes with our clients. How do we resolve them? How do we manage them? Sometimes our clients just are unhappy and they're difficult, and those conflicts will still arise. So how can we best manage them? Many of those conflicts are easily correctable. Your client may be upset about the lack of communication if you haven't communicated frequently enough. That's an easy one. We can rectify that. We can apologize for not being in better touch with them and answer their calls promptly and send out status updates. Or your client may be frustrated because they don't understand the process. That's also easy. We can clarify the process and explain to them what's going to happen, when, and how it works. And disputes about fees often arise, and they sometimes can be managed as well. But sometimes disputes require more than just clarification. So I'm going to give you two suggestions of how to manage them. The first is to listen carefully. When the client expresses concerns, give your client your full attention. Maintain eye contact, nod to show understanding, and avoid interrupting. Reflect on what the client says to confirm your understanding of it. Make sure you fully understand their concerns before you respond. And most importantly, always maintain your composure. Be professional, even when the client is upset. Use a calm tone of voice, remain patient, and don't become defensive or argumentative. The worst thing we can do when a client attacks us is to lose our cool and attack back. So listen carefully and make sure you understand the client. And then the next step is try to see if you can determine a solution. Once you've understood the client, see if you can develop a plan of action that resolves the client's concerns, but also works for you. Create a plan to resolve those concerns and to address them, and outline exactly what you'll do, what the steps are. Set realistic expectations and give your client a timeline. Then act on your plan and keep the client updated on your progress. Most client disputes can be resolved if you listen, if you're professional, and if you address the client's concerns. But sadly, even sometimes that's not enough, and we have to terminate the client relationship. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes the dispute can't be resolved. And terminating a relationship with a difficult client is a sensitive process and requires careful handling to make sure you maintain professionalism and ethical standards. So here are a couple steps to follow. The first is to assess the situation. Is terminating the attorney-client relationship the best option for you? Consider if there are any other avenues for resolving the issue that have been exhausted. Review the terms of your engagement letter to make sure you comply with any termination clauses. And if there's another way to resolve the dispute, give that a try first. Secondly, check ethical and legal guidelines and processes in your state. Familiarize yourself with the ethical rules of your local governing body and make sure that terminating the relationship doesn't prejudice your client or their position. 3, prepare for termination. Document all the reasons for termination and your attempts to resolve the issues with your client. Make sure you have all their files ready to ensure a transition if the client needs to continue their case with another lawyer. 4, notify the client in writing. Send a letter, inform the client of your decision to terminate the relationship. Be clear, concise, and professional in your communication. And I suggest you give the reasons for termination without being aggressive or overly critical. And refer to any clauses in your engagement letter that justify the termination, and make sure your client has enough notice to find another attorney. 5, offer assistance in the transition. Give your clients copies of their files if that's appropriate. Suggest other attorneys who might be able to take over their case. And if you're in the middle of an active case, don't withdraw before the client has a fair opportunity to secure new representation. And finally, settle any outstanding fees. Address any fees that are owed to you or expenses by the client, and give a final invoice explaining that those payments that are due. And my suggestion is I'd be willing to negotiate any disputed amounts to avoid further conflict. I found it never ever works. It's never a good step. Well, I should never say never. It's often not a good step to sue a client, an unhappy, disgruntled client, for fees that are owed. It often leads to an attorney grievance or a malpractice claim. And if you follow these steps, you can then terminate that relationship with that difficult client ethically and professionally, and minimize any negative impact both on you and on the client. I have to say, handling difficult clients is unquestionably one of the most challenging aspects of our profession. But it's also an opportunity to demonstrate your professionalism, your empathy, and your problem-solving skills. If you set clear expectations, communicate effectively, and employ strategic conflict resolution techniques when a dispute arises, you can transform potentially harmful experiences into positive outcomes. Remember, each difficult client situation is a chance for you to grow and to refine your practice. And when you master these skills, you enhance your relationships with your clients, and you will build a stronger and more resilient practice. So embrace the challenge, apply these strategies, and see if your client relationships and professional satisfaction don't improve. In 45 years, I've had all kinds of clients, and most I've had fantastic relationships with, fantastic. But sometimes I make the wrong call when I represent the person who's very difficult. So if you need any assistance in managing relationships with your clients, if you have difficult clients that you don't know how to best handle them or make the situation better, reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. You can contact me at gary@garymiles.net. I thank you for listening today. If you have any topics you would like me to address in future episodes, please let me know. I'm happy to do that. And I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful rest of your day. Work on managing those clients. Consider not taking on the client who looks like one of the difficult ones, and enjoy your practice. Know that some of those difficult clients will unquestionably appear in your life. And hopefully these tips will be helpful to you in setting expectations, communicating well, and handling those disputes as they arise. Thank you for listening today. And as always, please be well, be safe, and be free.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Free Lawyer Podcast. Wherever you are listening, if you enjoyed what I shared, please leave me a rating and review. I would appreciate hearing more about what you like best and what topics you might like me to cover in future episodes. If you are interested in experiencing a more fulfilling and a more successful life, please contact me at www.garymiles.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me so I can learn more about you, your challenges, and your dreams. I appreciate each and every one of you, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks to all of you for your support.